Okay.
So good afternoon, everyone. This is the last presentation that we have live today. So hang in there. We're almost done.
No. Actually, there's one more after you, but...
But it's recorded.
It still counts.
Yeah, that's why I'm part of the technician stuff. So today I'm going to present artificial intelligence feasibility in construction industry. Together, it's a work that we have done together with my colleague Ania and my supervisor, Professor Cecconi. So let's start by introducing the problem. And I think that you already know that digitalization in construction is a very low level. And this is a study conducted by McKinsey in 2016. And you can clearly see that construction is almost at the end. And I can describe each one of these columns. But to give you a better idea, we are just above hunting in terms of digitalization. So I think this describes quite well the level of construction. And of course, there are some aspects that are unique in our industry. First of all, we have a fragmented sector. We have a lot of small enterprises, medium enterprises, and big enterprises. Most of all are small enterprises. So it's very difficult for them to follow technological innovation, to have the skills and ability and the learnability to deal with new technologies. So this is an important aspect that we might consider for our sector. The second one is that most products are unique. And we had a very nice discussion in the summer school last week about that, because this is a trend that we are seeing in the last 100 years, basically, where we are trying to build always unique and complex building. And Professor Brilacchi suggests that it might be interesting in our field to have both a Ferrari, for example, and also some Honda, or to stay in Italy, Fiat, because we don't always need a very unique and very complex building. For most of the cases, we just need a very engineered, very efficient building. So there's a problem, I think. Okay, problem solved. Moving on, and the third point is the scarce information and data sharing. So for digitalized technologies, it's very important to have the accessibility to data in quantity and in quality, but in our field, it's very difficult to find good data sets right now. But there is an opportunity. We have a lot of different technologies that is coming in our field, and this ecosystem of technology is called Construction 4.0. And we have different tasks that are covered by these technologies. The first one is data acquisition. So we are having 47 zettabytes of data right now. And for whoever was wondering how much is a zettabyte, is 1 billion of terabytes. So it's very huge. But by 5 years, we are more than doubling this amount of data. So we'll be producing more and more data because we will have a lot of sensors, a lot of 3D scanning, because 360 cameras and LiDAR will be less and less expensive. So there will be the accessibility to much more data. And then we have technologies that deal with automating processes such as robotics and 3D printing. And finally, we will have technologies dealing with digital information and analysis. Today, we are focusing particularly in artificial intelligence because it's technologies that will be needed to understand and gain knowledge from the vast amount of data that we are going to collect in the next year. And of course, we will have building information modeling that will be the backbone of our industry, and also virtual and augmented reality. So what is artificial intelligence? Artificial intelligence is a very broad concept that starts to be defined around the 1950s, but in the recent year, artificial intelligence is more and more linked to machine learning, which is the ability to learn without being explicitly programmed, and also deep learning. Deep learning is very interesting and is the latest advancement in machine learning. And they are based from neural network, which is the same logic that we have in our brain. And with deep neural network is possible to understand very complex data, such as language and in particular images and videos. So also computer vision applications are something that we can do with deep learning. But let's go to see the research question about this presentation. And the first one is, what is the current AI usage in the construction industry? What are the advantages that people from our industry is perceiving in introducing AI, and what are the main obstacles and challenges for introducing AI? We did this exploratory analysis by making a survey that was formed basically by 5 sections. The first one is just general information to understand who was the respondents of our surveys. Then we have the very important questions, which is basically a yes or no question. Does the company use AI in one of their processes? And if they're not using AI, what are the perceived obstacles that are hindering them on adopting AI? And if they answer yes, what are the faced obstacles? Because we are supposed that they already overpassed these obstacles, or at least some of them. And what are the advantages in using AI? After all, overall, we had 43 responses from practitioners from Europe and US, especially Europe. And 1/3 of them were from medium and big companies. And this is a nice result because I would say that the landscape of companies that we had in construction almost reflect this number. And 40% of the participants have 1 to 5 years of experience, so they are very new to the field, and probably they might be more into digital technologies, because younger people are more open to use new and digital technologies. So let's see the first results. So from the respondents, almost 20% of the companies are using AI. And we ask also what are the main techniques that are currently using. And you can see on the graph on the right that machine learning is undoubtedly the most used one. We compared also these respondents with the current literature that is available on Scopus, and you can see that on the left side is the number of outlets that we found for each techniques in construction. And we can see that the patterns is more or less reflecting the one that we have from the responses, but the computer vision is more applied than researched, so I think there's interesting room to have more research about computer vision in construction. And I put also fuzzy logic, just to show that in construction nowadays, artificial intelligence usually refers to machine learning and, of course, deep learning, while fuzzy logic, genetic algorithm is less and less researched, at least in construction. But let's go to see the advantages that the respondents told us about using AI. So we have the first 5 most pointed responses, which are better reputation, new services, better automation, time savings, and cost savings. And undoubtedly, the better automation option was the most success. I would like to spend a few words about better reputation, because I have done some consultant for a startup in the US, and sometimes some clients were asking like, do you have AI? And I say like, okay, we have AI in our menu, but it's not the correct approach that you will have with AI. So better reputation is something that is useful for a company, but is not the motivator for introducing AI in the processes. For sure, time savings, cost savings, and better automation are much more better terms. Then we have faced obstacles by companies that use AI in their process, and clearly lack of AI knowledge and lack of data are the most two selected options. But it's interesting enough to see that also companies that are not using AI right now select lack of AI knowledge and lack of data as the main reason of not adopting AI. So these two problems and these two aspects are the most concerning aspects for the industry. And let's see what are the possible solutions to address these two problems. So we have, for the lack of AI skills, we can see that many universities have started digital construction or related programs in the last 5 years. And we have more and more open access data, open access course to make the people learn about AI. And of course, open data and open source codes make the introduction of AI easier because it will be much more easy to take an already created code, put inside one process and just tune the input and some tune parametering of the model without having a very deep AI knowledge. Then for the lack of data, there are two possible solutions that is coming recently. So the third one is that in our industry we have a lot of 3D CAD drawings that we use also in our building information model. And this is a powerful source for generating synthetic data using like a machine engine like Unity or Unreal. And we can use and leverage this data for creating more complete and more balanced data sets for computer vision applications. At the same time, there is also generative adversarial network, so GANs, that can help us to equilibrate and balance imbalanced data sets. So in a nutshell, how it works, a generative adversarial network, we introduce some noise array, and there is a generator, which usually is a neural network, that create a fake images. This is an application for computer vision, but it is the same thing for natural language processing or other application. The generator creates these fake images, and the discriminator has to understand which images is fake or which one is real. And once he detects his labels, there is the predicted labels with some weights, and if they are incorrect, the model will update all the weights, and again, the generator is learning how to fool the discriminator. And once the discriminator, or half of the data, are fooling the discriminator, we have reached a good point, and so the GANs is able to create almost real data. So, concluding what are and answering to the three research questions, we have seen that AI in the industry is still at its infancy stage. The possibility to automate repetitive and tedious tasks is the most selected and found advantage. And finally, we have lack of AI skills and lack of data as the most faced obstacles. And we try to give some hints on how to solve these problems. So thank you for your attention.